All right, so we're back here again, and so in the last video that was posted, we were talking a little bit about rational choice theory, why it's important, how it's seen as a development, and started to unpack that a little bit. So for this, we're talking about rational choice, which I'm going to abbreviate as RATC, right? So as we introduced in the last video, we'll try this color just because, we know that we assume that people are processing information. So with this processing, right, this can be any kind of thing, right? So this is going to be benefits. It's going to be risk, like the act of getting caught. And that, so a couple things to keep in mind, right? And so when we talk about like rationality, right, what we're saying is that rational is like an optimal decision based off of available information. Now, a key thing to keep in mind, right, is that when we think about crime and like the risks that we have for people, what happens to it, right, we know that we have limited information. We don't, if someone is a prospective criminal person, they don't have access to everything, right? They don't know when or how police are. They don't know about who's seeing them, whether they're, like guarded, whether they are going to be seen by other people, right? Or like, what if we're thinking about someone who burgles a home, we don't know what the risk is, like what the valuables are, is it really worth the risk, and so on, right? So when we have limited information, we say that this is a bounded rationality, because it's only something, you can only make decisions based off of what you know and your ability to process it. So what you know, or what information is available, is another way to describe it, and your ability to process information. For example, right, like if you think about like powerful quotes or something like that, there is a distinction between, or if you like read a book, or if you're reading sarcasm or something, you know that there is one aspect is either reading or listening to something, but that is quite another to digest something, right? So really take it in, accept it for what it's worth on it, right? So, when we think about like rational choice theory though, right? So we know this stuff coming in, right? We know that we have this, we're doing this with information. We know we're making decisions on this. We know that we're not always very good at processing stuff. So how does rational choice theory explain why people commit crime? So the first thing that we keep in mind, right, is that we know that there are pros to an action. So this is going to be stuff like benefits, right? And there are going to be cons. So like reasons or disadvantages to not do something. So like with that in mind, right, so we have this, right? So what ends up happening is that if we like draw out like a little model, right, and so we'll make use of this. Ooh, maybe we'll do like a thinner one, right? So we can keep it a little tidier. Maybe this will be the permanent one from now on. All right. So when you think about like how someone is making a decision, right, there is going to be, as a person, you're right here, right? And this will be your personal views, right? And, when we think about the rest of our society, though, right, outside of our personal views, right, we also have society, making judgments. So I put this in a box. This is in a box. Society making judgments, and maybe there is like religious factors, right, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Point being is that all of these are moving in this path, right? So you have your personal views that are also influenced by societal judgments and religious stuff, right? Before you end up making a decision, right? So if we decide that we are going to lead to some behavior, whatever that behavior is, right? So we put this in a box. So we know we're leading this way in the path, right? We also know that this is going to be influenced by the pros of an action, right? So we have all this other background information beforehand. We know that the pros of a behavior are working on it. We also know that the cons of a behavior are being influenced, right? And then this will leads further into the actual action or behavior. So this is like decision, and this is what like the end result is, right? So this is what happens. So this behavior could be action or inaction or something like that, right? And this is just a way to think about it. You can make your own diagrams, whatever works for you. It's just something to keep in mind. So with this, though, so what do we get from this? How does this work? How is this beneficial or anything like that, right? So big thing that comes in, right, is that when we think about the decision to commit crime, which is what rational choice is, right, we think about the pros. We assume that people are self-interested. We assume that they are looking for like utility or a personal benefit. Right? Now, the key like little part here, right, is that this is a general process and applies to everyone, right? Because we're all self-interested. We're all utility. We all make personal decisions where we can benefit. So this is something that is believed to apply to everyone. So a little important distinction here that keep in mind, right, is that any kind of criminal is not seen as different, or like, they're not born different. They're not in some way different than other people. So that is the core idea that we're talking about, right? So everyone can engage in this process. Everyone's going to be self-interested. Everyone goes through this general process, right? And so like when we keep this in mind, we know that people are acting and behaving in this way. We find then that crime, so the decision to commit crime, is going to be self-interested, and it comes through weighing pros and cons of doing an action, and it also is something that is like a thought process. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to sit and really think about it, right? You're not in the park staring at a tree like, God, what do I do? Really sorting out your life. This kind of process can be a very quick kind of process, right? But also note, though, is that when we think about a rational choice, right, this kind of thing, we usually kind of assume that these are for instrumental crimes, that this is perhaps best for, right, in that, there is some outcome we want to get. So if you're stealing something, yes, I'm getting a direct benefit from this, right? One criticism that comes up, is things like violence. If you think about violence, right, you kill someone to throw a passion. Was that a rational choice? You weighed out the pros and cons before killing your partner because you caught them, sleeping with someone else, right? Is that like a rational process? So this is more in doubt. Of course, you could also make the argument, right, that people in the throes of a moment, are really inclined to make this sort of decision. So for now, we'll set this aside for a moment, and we'll pick up this a little bit